Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Saturday morning. We're going to get right to business. We got Coach Butch Thompson with us from Auburn, talking Auburn and SEC baseball race, and it is one hell of a race. And also Billy Roberts checking in with us from Atlanta, baseball junkie, Bravesologist, SEC report, and Buddy Martin, GatorBaitMedia.com will check in with us as well in the second hour. 50 hours a month, 25 shows a month, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. Central. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. And let's get going, man. And big day ahead. This is the final weekend of the SEC baseball race. And, Coach, it was crazy. But, I mean, you said it so prophetically. At the midway point, you were 5-10. And then you talked about playing Mississippi State 2 years ago. They're the national champion. Then going to number 2 South Carolina. Coming home to play number 1 LSU, and then to the defending national champion Ole Miss, and then Missouri. Rather than, like a lot of people will do, get a lot of anxiety about the schedule, you said this is opportunity for us. This is a great opportunity staring us right in the face, and it's exactly what you did, man. It's incredible to watch.
We got a big one today, the biggest one of the whole year's today, so yeah. It's still in front of us, but yeah, we didn't have a lot of choice, did we? So and then what's the way you're going to tackle it, you know? And I just thought the best way to tackle it is, you know, if you want to score, if you want to stay in the game, you need to embrace riding the meanest, rankest bull. And right. The guys have done a good job, but it's not over, you know? Every team in our league, except for one, maybe is still fighting for life and still have a breath in them. And absolutely, the Auburn Tigers are playing for something today. And the game doesn't care how well you've done recently or how bad. You just want to be in the game. And there's opportunities for us today to try to go get. So it's kind of hard doing an interview on a game day when you're in the middle of it like this, because this is important for us to, you know, try to stay on the process and see if we can get a desired result at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you know, Billy, I was listening to the game yesterday with John Cohen was doing color analyst on the first game. Boy, he's got you'll never get the coach out of that guy. Man, that was awesome to listen to him and Andy. I mean, there's no better sport to listen to than baseball on the radio, on the app. But man, you coached with him for what, 6 or 7 years? That's a man, he knows his baseball. I hope Auburn can keep him as an AD because, wow, he knew every pitch coming in. Billy, you know baseball, you love it, but do yourself a favor, man. Put that Auburn baseball app on there. That was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And Coach, when you've got these guys kind of fighting for their life, is your instinct as a coach to kind of lighten it up and understand they're already going to kind of be tense, a lot of them, or do you kind of just admit the stakes are high and everybody's got to bring their A game? I mean, you know, from like the psychology of a coach, what is your instinct? Do you try to keep them loose, or do you just accept that they're all putting a lot of pressure on themselves at this stage of the season?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. There's a new tactic every day, and it's just one piece. I don't try to throw 10 things, but it hadn't just been one theme. I tell you what we did last week is on the way to Oxford, we stopped in Vestavia Hills over in Birmingham and did the Miracle League. And you get out with those kids on a field and play with them for a couple hours. But if that don't give you perspective, there's nothing that come out of my mouth that can say anything properly. I'm the same coach as when we were 5-10, and now that we've won 11-3 or whatever the second half, whatever it is, I'm still the same guy. I got some great leaders like Kason Howell. There is absolutely an effect to what he has done with this program as far as keeping it together. And, you know, this isn't one of those things where the coach should get too much blame or too much of the credit. I think this has been player led this is a pretty good turnaround. This is pretty exciting. And this team yesterday matched the conference win total of our Omaha team last year. So just an amazing job of Kason Howell. That effect has been really amazing. And that's not taken away from other leaders like Nate LaRue and Bobby Pierce, but it just seemed like this is a guy that stepped in the gap, and those two guys even went on each side of him and flanked him to allow Case and Howell to lead this. So if you told me today what is the biggest thing, is that I do. I try to keep them focused on a process instead of a result. Because the result, man, we had a team. Somebody was down 8-2 yesterday and won, and somebody was up 13-4 last week and lost. This is incredible in our league. It's amazing, and I think we've done a good job of getting on process. This weekend is like when we think of solution. Everybody's going to have problems. We got a problem this weekend. 2 of our starters are out. We had Herbert Holtz go down at Ole Miss last week, and then Tommy Vale has got an IV in him yesterday, who's probably pitched better or as good as anybody in the league the last 5 weeks. So they're out. So when I say solution to a team, the thing I'm doing this weekend is like, solution is not give me an answer. Solution is just any improvement whatsoever. And I think we're getting a little bit, this team's doing such a good job that the problems aren't blind, but they're a little bit invisible. Because if you sit there and just wallow in your problems, we don't have 2 starters, it just takes you so far away of the best game you can play. But if you can get to where when a problem comes and within 60 seconds, if you can get to a solution or just any one thing, any improvement whatsoever, it's not like it's not there. That problem's not there, but we're not focused on that side of the ledger. And this team has done an amazing job of that, of understanding like a relentless solution focus. And that's what we've been trying to teach this team. And it's taken a while, but when it hooked up, that was special. The Case and Howell effect. And the other thing is just make the other fella beat you. When you quit walking everybody, and you can shove a ball in the strike zone and you can find strike one, you don't have to get new people. Just ability to throw strike one to get ahead and to stay ahead and to use your head a little bit. But if you start shoving it in the zone and make the other fella beat you, you can start having a little bit more success.
Coach, one of the things that's really neat is how the pitching, having Coach Showing Rock. And I listened to the post game of the players talking. They call him Coach Rock, I believe. 18 years he was here at Memphis, man. That guy, he's one of your former coaches. This has got to be really special for you to bring him back. But damn, man, when he goes out there to the mound, that's a lot of experience. And then you, I mean, to think, okay, we asked you this question about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Of your top 3 pitchers before the season started that you had projected as your top 3, I said, how many combined innings? I didn't even finish asking the question, and I think you said 5 1/3. And now Herbert Holtz and Tommy Vale, I don't know how you do it. But I remember Mississippi State, I think in 2019, their top 7 pitchers got hurt and they got into the College World Series. And it's that kind of talk about how y'all come together and say, yeah, hey, don't tell me what's wrong. Tell me how we're going to fix it.
Yeah, I think it's as simple, to not get long-winded here, is just Coach Rock was the perfect man. 39 years of experience, a head coach forever, was my coach. Yeah. And then he comes in and he's a servant. Yeah. Like, I don't know if it was the right thing or the wrong thing to do. Early in the year, I got so upset that I kicked the anthill. I'm like, I'm the head coach, so I made Coach Rock go to the bullpen for a week. I needed to look under the hood. And this is a guy that coached me. Yeah. And for somebody with that much acumen, that much experience, that good of a man, that great of a pitching coach, to like, I'll do anything to help you in your program. I came here to serve. And that's somebody that's done this for so long. And he's been so good to those boys. When I was probably bad cop, I'm like, this is unacceptable. This is below a standard of this league. This is not going to happen in our program. We've got to fix it. And he stayed steady with these boys. I think it was been a blessing from above for me to have him at this time, at this transition of expectations being here in our program, a whole new group, a ton of freshmen that's never done it before. Herbert Holtz and Vale are walk-ons, and they emerged to be 2 starting pieces for us. I can't sing Coach Rock's praises because, you know, God will never forsake you. Your family will hang in there with you pretty daggum good. Your team and your coaches will, if you treat them good and they know you love them. The fans are the first one to jump ship on you. And you know, they didn't, after losing like a great Tim Hudson, who's awesome. Then a Coach Rock, such a good man, coming here and steadied and absolutely kept his head down, saw it through, was good to these boys. Man, I tell you what, I wake up today with a lot of work left to do, but I'm so thankful that man was with us. We're here where we're at now because of his steady hand, his experience, the quality human he is, and how good of a pitching coach that man is. So I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to say that today.
Yeah, because it's just listening to when Andy and Brad and the team talk to you and the players after the game, that says so much. And Chase Alsop, I just, Billy, you got to marvel at you talked about Coach not Noel Mazzoni, but the great pitching coach
Leo
Mazzoni, yeah. And you talk about that, but Billy, I mean, you look at it from afar, to be able to do this in pitching, it's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Coach, in times like this where you kind of have to find who your leaders are, how much of that goes back to what you might have seen in recruiting when they were younger guys? Are you like, okay, that guy's what we thought he was from a makeup standpoint, or are you sometimes surprised that there's some leadership within a guy that maybe you didn't see? You saw the talent, obviously you recruited him, but leadership seems like such an ethereal thing. There's a lot of books written about it. There's do you make leaders, or is there leadership just within? It's innate. I mean, how much of that do you see recruiting and then it comes true versus how often are you surprised going, this guy really emerged? I didn't know he had that in him.
Yeah, it's a complex question, Billy. A great one, but it's complex because we went through a cycle there probably 2 years where you might not have seen a guy play and you might not have sat down with him in his home or had him on a visit to campus with this COVID. There's still some of that going on. Character is always been important. I think it's even more important now than it's ever been because there are more distractions than ever. You can't find truth anywhere. There's a whole world trying to shape you a certain way and tell you what reality is. So a family raising somebody good and true character has always been important. I don't think it's ever been more important than it is right now to keep things focused. And I do think with the right techniques and the right, let me say, consistency. Everybody can read a book and come up with like these bullet points, but it's a day-to-day consistent routine of doing it every day and being willing to do that. There can be growth in leadership. There can be growth in character. There's no question about that either.
Coach, here's a text here from Maury Gaston, friend of mine in the show, and you've talked to Maury, and he's close to Dr. Roberts. And he said, Dr. Roberts was on the field yesterday to honor the baseball graduates. And he said, what does that mean to you to have that kind of support and to have, it was really cool. I'm telling you, John Cohen in the broadcast booth yesterday, you coached with him for 6 years. You were surrounded by people that you've worked with and all throughout your life. That says a lot about you as well.
Well, you can hear John, like you said, you talk on the radio. If you've heard him talk, you know that baseball is a huge part of his DNA, and that won't go away. I was fortunate now, as an assistant for 23 years. Yeah. I got to work for 3 national coaches of the year, and John Cohen and David Perno at Georgia and Brian Shoup at Birmingham Southern. So, man, I was trained well. I had really good, successful coaches and men that were, national coaches of the year that invested in me. So I would be an idiot if I didn't pick anything up. So I've taken threads from all these guys and thankful for my journey. And it absolutely helped prepare me to go. But John is great. Having our president of our university there, we were on the road last week, couldn't do graduation ceremonies. And what a great idea by John and President Roberts to like, hey, we'll come to you. And we'd never done that before. That was neat. We had our second Eagle flight yesterday before the game. Man, we're just it's growing, it's getting richer, and that's what's so huge to allow a program to keep growing, to keep that consistency in place. I even think with our coaching staff, like a Nunemaker and a Gross, they've been here 5 years. We'll be going on 6 years together, and myself. That allows you to keep building out a program. So we just keep, making a richer, more all around program over time. And this stuff doesn't happen overnight. This has been years in the making,
Yeah. Well, Coach, and I know you've got to get back. So at the end of this segment, we'll let you out. But when you think about baseball, college baseball in the SEC, how competitive it is, that makes it easy to get up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning. Easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, or you just can't sleep. It's one of the two. I've been up here for a while. We're trying to figure out how to piece together. Isn't it amazing how it's coming down for your champion today? Who's going to get in the final day at the bottom? And if we're in the middle, I think we could be 5th or 9th at the end of the day. So you can't tell me today's not important. It's but I love it. It's what makes it crazy. It's what makes it awesome. We went 11-3 in the second half, and we're still playing for 5th or 9th in this league. What an amazing league. And I will report, because I represent every SEC school as the regional advisory committee. Our league is number 1 in RPI, number 1 in strength of schedule, and we are like 274 and 68 in non-conference games. That's 82% winning percentage in our non-conference of our league. It's exceptional. It's amazing. So hopefully we get as many or more hosts than we've ever had. Some teams have got to come on and play good in the tournament to get, the complete number of at-large teams in. But, our league has performed well again, and I absolutely look forward to do that, moving into this postseason as well.
Coach, incredible. I know you got to get back out there. We'll be listening and watching today, and talk to you next week. Thanks so much.
Yeah, Rob, Billy, good to see you guys. Have a great day.
Good luck.
Be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Billy, you can see the focus of Butch Thompson, and I like that answer. I said, "Hey, is it easy to get up at 4:30 or 5?" He said, "Well, or you can't sleep," and he's been up there a while. But I was listening to the games yesterday. I think they're on ESPN Plus, the app, which is difficult to download for a lot of people for whatever reason. But Billy, baseball so well. The pitching part of it. And I referenced back, I think it was 2019 when Mississippi State, their top 7 pitchers were injured and they still made it to the World Series. That's coaching right there to be able to pull enough healthy arms together to get there. And you look at Herbert Holtz and Chase Alsop for Tommy Vale. Tommy Vale, wow. Last weekend over in Oxford was just playing in the zone, on another level. Joseph Gonzalez hadn't pitched any for Auburn this year. He was Auburn's ace on the mound, and he's going to just go ahead and give the professional leagues a shot. He's not going to be able to play any this year. But you bring in your former coach and mentor, Coach Darren Schoenrock, who'd been at Memphis for 18 years, put him together with Carl Nunemaker, Gabe Gross, and Butch Thompson. And then he sends him to the bullpen for a week, good cop, bad cop, whatever. Billy, is there more going on behind the scenes in baseball than any of the what we call the big three sports? I think there is.
Well, yeah, and I mean, where we sit, luckily in the middle of the SEC, we're not surprised by the crowds and the enthusiasm. There's a SEC football atmosphere that transfers now to SEC baseball, and what a gift to recruiting right there. You're going to get the best players that want to come and be part of that when they see 10,000 plus at a college baseball game and the crowds are going nuts. I mean, SEC fans know how to show up and know what to do and support their team. The atmosphere is electric. It doesn't even matter if it's a midweek game on a Wednesday. They're going to show up, and the guys are going to see that and want to be a part of it. So that part of it, you can assume all of the SEC teams have pretty good rosters. So, now you've got to piece together maybe a bullpen game, and probably get guys to not overthrow. I have that problem when I play golf. Like, when I've got to hit a shot, sometimes I get a little too geeked up or amped up. And, golf is a precision game, very similar to baseball, very similar to pitching, where, the repetition brings that precision. And then when it's time to perform, you just do it automatically because you earned it during the week in practice. You kind of know what you got, know what you don't got. Sliders are a feel pitch. You got to be able to just understand exactly how to throw that so you don't hang a slider. That's the quickest way to see a ball get hit out of the park on a hung slider, right? So it's precision, and when guys are trying too hard, that's when they fail in baseball. But you also have got to get them to really bring their best. So it's a fine line. Precision games like that, you got to slow your heartbeat down. You got to take a breath and then execute the pitch or make the play defensively when the ball comes to you. There's some kids in Little League, they hope during the whole game the ball doesn't get hit to them. And then there's other ones like, I'm sure Chipper Jones at 11 years old wanted every ball coming his way.
Yep.
So that's why I was asking Coach about, when you're recruiting guys that are young and trying to project what they might be, 2 years later or a year later, physically as well as just from a leadership standpoint. Do you see that? Does it jump off the screen when you see it, or is it something that's within a guy and he just kind of summons that when the chips are down, and kind of that's where a clutch player, I guess, comes from. When you say that, when a guy can produce after the seventh inning, we call him clutch. And, maybe that's something that's just within certain guys that other guys just don't have that extra thing they can go reach for. It's fascinating.
It is. And you think about with baseball, and you talk about hanging a slider over there, you'll see a guy throwing heat down the middle at 96 miles an hour and then come back with a 77 mile an hour changeup or something. But it's hard for a guy to be able to throw 97, the entire game.
You can't.
Pitching, you can't. Your arm will fall off. Like I think Coach Thompson told us what Dr. Andrews said. The elbow, the ulna, is designed to throw at about 90 miles an hour max. And you start getting above that, your arm's going to fall off. It's going to feel like it for sure. But I think the neatest thing about what's going on in college baseball is once you get that commitment and support from your university president, your board of trustees, your athletic director. In the case of John Cohen, Butch Thompson coached under him for 6 years at Mississippi State. And he's coached for 3 national coaches of the year. So he learned a lot from those guys. But Billy, let's go flip it over to the Atlanta Braves. I go back to, it was in the fall. It was October of 2021. You and I were over there at your house in Brookhaven, next to Buckhead, but not in Atlanta. Next to Atlanta.
Atlanta adjacent.
Yes, that's right. Atlanta. Now look, my niece lives 5 minutes from you. And I told my sister, I said, I called. She goes, no, you didn't call the other day. we got to go back over there and see them. But she was in California when I was there last time. She's traveling like crazy, and husband's back and forth to New York. But they're all Braves junkies. It's just, I don't, you know what? The Braves following is now Atlanta people. It's no longer when they play the Mets or the White Sox or the Red Sox or the Yankees, over half the crowd is those other people's deal. Who came up with the idea for the battery? But again, I go back to October of 21. You and I were having a discussion, drinking some ice cold Ham's beer, and you said Liberty Media has a payroll for the Braves of $147 million, and the Dodgers had about $250 million. Ted Turner bought the Braves for $4 million.
$4 million.
$4 million. $4 million, Winthorpe. Pay up. I mean,
and I think he had to borrow money against all the billboards that he owned for collateral to buy the Braves, because he from the original business was Turner Outdoor Advertising. It was a billboard company.
It's just unbelievable. That to me, what they've done though, that in terms of the interest, we had Chris Domino on a couple of weeks ago. What a baseball! I mean, he is a baseball Einstein. You were right about him. The Bag of Souls, the interviews that he's done on the history of baseball. Man, we got to get him back on here again.
Well, and the thing that's nice about him is, he's done those interviews and kind of targeted these aging Hall of Famers. He's done it for so long because Chris has been on the air for a long time that these are real artifacts now. These guys are, some of them no longer with us, but he had, deep, interviews with him, kind of podcast style, long format interviews a long time ago. And, starting 20 something years ago when he was a younger guy, and he's a great interviewer, and he understands, their historical place in the game and can ask them good questions in context, and, just a delight. He was such a good guest. I'm glad that you had him on.
Well, I it's rare that you're able to find somebody that has that kind of a knowledge of baseball and the interviews that he's had. I mean, how fortuitous he was to go grab, Ted Williams. He's got, of course, George Brett, Hank Aaron. And you could tell watching on YouTube how much these people respect him for what he does in terms of, genuinely knowing about them and their history. Hank Aaron, at the end of the interview, reached over and gave him a big hug. I mean, Hank Aaron is baseball. Billy, when I was a kid, Dad would we'd have these. My mother would say, "Hey, we're leaving tomorrow morning. We're going to go with your father to Atlanta for three or 4 days for some meeting, something for work." And during the summer, of course, we would go. And I got at Six Flags an Atlanta Braves helmet. Remember, they would serve the ice cream in those helmets.
Oh yeah.
I was going up the Runaway Mine Train.
Batting helmet.
And it fell out of my. I guess I had it in my lap or something. It fell out. And I wanted that Atlanta Braves baseball batting helmet so badly that we went back up there that night after they'd closed, and my father got him to open up the park and go find that damn hat. And it had a crack in it. It was a baseball helmet, a batting helmet. Yep. And, I've grown up always following the Cardinals, and I don't know nearly as much about baseball as you do. But the Cardinals and the Braves in the South, then you got, of course, Tampa Bay, the Devil Rays. You got the Marlins down in Miami. But the Braves and the Cardinals they're similar. Their fans are similar to football fans in the South, aren't they?
Well, they are. And, when the Braves first came to the South, one of the things they did that was smart was developed a vast radio network. And Ernie Johnson Sr., who, we all know was a, famous announcer for the Braves. He was one of the original broadcasters. He was a former pitcher for the Milwaukee Braves, and I think even the Boston Braves when he was a young guy. But he came down a year before the Braves moved to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And he went all over the South and signed up, AM stations in every little town in the South to carry the Braves. And he built a very, very big Braves radio network. And I think he must have modeled it after the Cardinals, because they had that, all over the South. Before the Braves came south from Milwaukee, the Cardinals were the southernmost baseball team that everybody rooted for. So he came down, and people, younger listeners would know Ernie Johnson Jr. That's on the NBA on TNT. His dad was the Braves broadcaster, Ernie Sr., and for decades. But he came down, and he is credited with kind of launching the Braves fan base. With what they call Braves country today. All over the South. The Carolinas, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi. There's no professional team in any of those states. So they're talking today about maybe putting in a major league team in Nashville or Charlotte, and they may do that, and probably should. Those cities are getting big now. But, the Atlanta Braves have been the only Southern team for 50 years. So now they do, like you said, they do have a fan base. Even in the 90s, when they were going to the World Series 5 times in 10 years, they still had the Cubs and the Mets fans show up and dominate home games in Atlanta, even with all that success, because, it was a city of transplants. But what happened was the people that came here in the 80s and 90s that are your age now, my age now, well, we got kids in their 20s that have grown up being Braves fans.
Yeah.
Even though mom and dad might have been from Chicago or Cubs fans, the kids grew up here. Maybe they were born in the early 90s. Yeah. My daughter was born in 98. Your kids are about the same age, but those kids grow up and they know nothing but Braves being a great team. When I tell my daughter, when I was a kid, the Braves drew 6,000 people, at Fulton County Stadium in August because they were 30 games out of first place. It's hard to imagine how bad they were back then because of how great they've been for 20 something years. And you got to give a ton of credit to that for Bobby Cox and John Shearholtz, because they built the farm system to where every year the Braves can summon 1 or 2 key guys out of their own farm system. And those guys go on to be all-stars. It's uncanny how they can plug holes, and find a guy like Michael Harris, the center fielder, is a great example. He had a play last night that was ridiculous. He caught a fly ball and threw a guy out at home, and it wasn't close. He threw him out by like 8 steps. And he doesn't even have the best arm in the outfield. That belongs to Acuna's. I mean, they've got just ridiculous guys that they've grown internally in their own farm system that you couldn't pry loose from another team. So the key there is you got to develop these guys. And that, of course, is the formula the Dodgers have done for a long time. They always seem to have incredible farm systems. So the Braves have modeled themselves maybe after the Dodgers a little bit.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Maury Gaston's joining us right now from Birmingham on the show with us right now. And, Maury's like we are. He understands the history, the traditions, the heroes of Southern sports. And that transfers over to translates easily to our professional sports teams in the South. If you are a Falcons fan, you are familiar with the great biblical figure Job. You have to have tremendous amount of patience, but a lot of heartbreak. Somebody was on the show with us a couple of days ago, guys. He said, I can't get, it was Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, who covers Georgia for us. He said, I just can't get over 28-3. I mean, that still hurts. And, but there's something about the Braves and the Cardinals. The Braves recruit like a college team. And Maury, when I got to Auburn in '82, the Braves were in the playoffs that year.
They were.
And that, of course, I grew up with, Dale Murphy. I mean, Dale Murphy couldn't do enough commercials about eating milk and peanut butter sandwiches, drinking milk and peanut butter sandwiches. And now you've got Acuna and Ozzie Albies. God, these guys they're marketable.
Well, Riley, right outside of Memphis, Austin Riley.
Yeah. Maury, Austin Riley's from South Haven, the Mississippi side of Memphis. But got about a minute before the break, Maury, and I want you to hang on with us. We're going to have Buddy Martin on with us in hour number 2. it's summertime. We kind of go to that a little more laid back schedule. But we had Butch Thompson on. In
the Falcons would do well to repeat their Josh Harris play and recruit more locally.
Yeah. Maury, yesterday, or actually with Jordan, somebody texted me during the show and made a good point. It was, I think it was Dave Cody, said they don't want to have to deal with all the local pressure.
The families.
Yeah. And I look at Memphis basketball over the years. Holy cow. You recruit a kid from Memphis, and all of a sudden you got 15 or 20 new assistant coaches you didn't even hire that are telling you where to play their son. All right, let's do this. We're going to get into a lot of stuff. Got a lot to cover today. Billy Roberts in Brookhaven, Maury Gaston in Birmingham, Rob Browne at the Cherry Farm in Lee Hall. Beautiful day. Lots to talk about. We're here 6 days a week. That's what we do. First Amendment is ardently and fervently respected, revered. Free speech is what we're all about after this. All right, Rob Browne back here with Billy Roberts and Maury Gaston. And guys, there's a lot going on right now in the sports world. Because we know the Braves, what they're doing is great in Major League Baseball. And I hope they don't put a team in Nashville. I really don't. I think what's cool about the Braves is they stretch out. I think their network, by the way, is almost 170 affiliates. And Billy, you're right. Ben Ingram, didn't he come from Jackson, Mississippi?
He did.
For the Jackson Braves.
Yep.
He is a great radio announcer. And Maury, I think you would agree, there's no better sport to listen to on the radio.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, you just think about the great stories and all.
Yeah. You can't get Brad and Andy off of my app yesterday I was in the car and I found them there. So man, it's absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, and you think about Ernie Johnson Sr. And about Harry Carey. Harry Carey worked for the Cardinals until he made a lewd comment, I think, about the owner's wife or something. But Harry Carey was a great announcer on the radio. And hey, he would have the names of the guys like Villanueva. He would go, "Hi, Ho Chi Minh on the mound." He could not.
Well, and Andres Galarraga, he struggled with that one.
He goes, "Here we go, Andres Galarraga."
Wonder how he'd do with that Clemson quarterback.
Oh, yeah, I can't. DJ Ugliele. Harry, what about that starting quarterback for the Clemson Tigers? Well, he wore those glasses that looked like ashtrays, man. They were thick. They were bulletproof. But I tell you what, he's probably up in heaven as the grand marshal of a nude Shriners parade every day. A cold Croissant, the old style beer. But anyway, ACC guys, a lot happening. Y'all ever notice how they always have these meetings in these places like Amelia Island? I mean, why couldn't they have them at the spillway at Sardis Dam in Mississippi, or something like that, or Minot, North Dakota in January? But
We
They've
could
been
give them we could give them a tour of a 60-inch diameter steel pipeline we furnished in Minot, North Dakota, if they wanted to see it.
There you go. Now that would be cool, because try living without clean drinking water.
There you go.
And, by the way, Maury, last week, Billy, Maury is a mechanical engineer, American Cast Iron Steel Pipe Company in Birmingham. They're over 100 years old. They sell the pipe to Memphis for Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. And I think, Maury, and I apologize, you're so good about texting me, was National Clean Drinking Water Day.
National Drinking Water Week.
Okay. That was this past week or the week before?
The week. It ended a week ago today.
Yeah. I'll make a prediction. The next war that we fight will be not over oil. It'll be over clean drinking water.
Yeah, could be.
And or trying to find a remote that fell down in the couch or something. I think that causes more anxiety than anything. But ACC guys, we talk a lot on here. Billy, you're right over there in Atlanta, which is the largest alumni base for every school in the South, just about. And Maury, you're there in Birmingham, where people don't realize that there's only more than two schools in America, Auburn and Alabama. But all that being said, you're 147 miles apart. ACC has 14 schools from, as they say down south, Syracuse up in upstate New York, all the way down to Miami. That geographical footprint, man, is all over the place.
Yeah.
There's now like a magnificent seven, they call them. Virginia Tech, Virginia, NC State, North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, and Miami. And now the AD at Florida State came out of those meetings and said, oh, it's all a bunch of overblown drama. We're completely happy in this league. The grant of rights, if you were to leave the ACC before 2036, left today, would cost the school, we're being told, $500 million.
Wow.
That TV contract they have with ESPN through 2036 only paid them about, I think, $5 million last year. You know what the SEC is getting? You know what the Big Ten's getting?
Those are disproportionate values.
Why can't, either one of y'all want to jump in on this? I'm not a lawyer, but you're a mechanical engineer, and Billy's dad's an engineer. And how many engineers in your family, Billy? Quite a few?
No, I think he might be one of the few there. We got lawyers and stuff, but and a lot of professors. We have 5 PhDs in the family.
Oh,
but
wow.
17 Auburn degrees in there, correct? 17. That's pretty
Crazy. But
pretty
yeah, my
impressive.
dad is a Gator, and he's got his engineering degree at Florida.
But he's got 3 kids that went to Auburn, so that's pretty.
Yeah.
But anyway, the ACC, why can't that contract be renegotiated? Every coach renegotiates their contract every time they win a big game.
Well, if it can't be, it's because they don't have the heft and the gravitas to renegotiate it.
Yeah.
They don't have the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Yeah.
They got one or two, but it gets diluted from New York to Florida.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
There are a lot of cultural differences in their area as well.
Yeah.
Now, certainly there's some cultural differences in the footprint of the SEC, but they're not nearly as great, I think, as they are up and down the East Coast.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody in the SEC country is going to be naming their kid Dylan anytime soon. I'll just leave it at that. But Billy, you think about the ACC footprint. You're 2 hours from Clemson. You got Georgia Tech right there. Explain this to me. Here's the problem, like Maury just said. Georgia Tech, there's a football game on Saturday. 75% of the students don't know it. I know they're studying and doing stuff like that, but Billy, it didn't used to be like that at Georgia Tech.
No, but what you're seeing at Tech is an overwhelming influx of foreign students,
Yeah.
that are coming there to get an engineering degree. It's one of the preeminent engineering schools in the world, not just the U.S. And these guys don't have a idea of what American football is. I mean, I don't know what kind of soccer team they have at Tech, but they would draw a crowd for it, because they've got a lot of foreign students. So that's part of the issue. The school is a victim of their global success in terms of the kind of student body they have there now. It's not the way it was 25 or 30 years ago. It's an international school, really, from a student body standpoint. And that probably has a lot to do with it. So they're fans. They got to grow college football fans in a hothouse environment, and hope they remain a college football fan. A lot of the one thing Tech does have is these folks tend to stay in Atlanta. They don't leave. They come here to college at Georgia Tech, and Atlanta's a great city, and they're like, man, this is pretty good. And they have a huge number of alumni that stay here. I mean, the Georgia Tech alumni are crawling all over this town. It's crazy how many there are. I mean, like every third or fourth person. Now, I'm in the computer business, so I'm exposed to that more than most. But every third or fourth guy you meet is a Tech grad. They're a massive local alumni base.
Well, I think it's kind of funny you say that. Auburn is the only school in the country. Maury, you're on the engineering council board at Auburn, but it has a degree in wireless engineering. That's it. Yeah. So,
well, we're not the first. We're not the only one now, but we were the first.
Yeah, the first. Yeah. But it's changed. I mean, I can remember, God, when Georgia Tech, there were so many people you knew that went there. Now, you really don't know people to go to Georgia Tech. It's like it is, again, so many foreign students coming there.
Yeah.
And it's changed a lot. But that conference, my point is, in order to be a conference, the people have to be like-minded. Now, the folks in Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia, Florida, I mean, there's some weirdos everywhere. Okay, I get that. As Coach Dye used to say, you talk about Auburn being different. He goes, you ain't going to walk around and like you will at a lot of these other campuses and see somebody with a damn bone running through their nose or a damn man bun. He goes, we have fun down here at Auburn, getting together and cooking some burgers and drinking a cold beer. But I'll just say this. I know Austin's got some weirdos too, but it's still an awesome city. But you bringing in Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. Now, if that isn't a good fit, I don't know what is. Just like Texas A&M. You walk in a building at Texas A&M, by God, you better take your hat off. I mean, there's tradition. Whether Olin Buchanan of TexAgs.com says, what a tradition at Texas A&M is, and Jackie Sherrill said it yesterday.
Something we've done twice.
You do something twice, it becomes a tradition. But
Rob, that was a great interview with Coach Sherrill yesterday, or the day before.
Yesterday. He came back on yesterday.
Yeah, the setting was unique. Catching that brown trout was out of this world, and he did a wonderful job, I thought, handling the equipment and technology. Just a great interview.
Yeah, he was. And he sent me about 8 pictures. They caught a bunch of fish, bunch of brown trout up there on the river. But, but I think he's got a unique perspective, having coached in the SEC and at A&M when they were in the Southwest Conference. And then R.C. Slocum came in for 14 years after him. I think the reason, Billy and Maury, that the SEC is so strong is, again, it's a contiguous footprint. All the states touch one another, and they're like-minded people. The ACC, those folks up there in Syracuse, I mean, how much do they have in common?
Boston College.
Boston College. I mean, they're good schools. Don't get me wrong; they're excellent schools. But I just the fan bases don't travel to where they, like in the SEC. Everybody goes to each other's campuses. There's all that familiarity. I mean, how many Boston College people and Syracuse people, Billy, do you see in Atlanta? I mean,
the way Atlanta is, there's a huge group of alumni for every school you can think of.
there are.
But I think that Maury nailed it. There's cultural differences. The Northeast, which is where half of the ACC is now, those are pro cities. Their traditions are. My granddad had Patriots tickets or New York Giants tickets, and that's who they root for. And their college affiliation is secondary in a lot of ways. So they don't have the tradition that we have where, like, my dad's a Gator, but he sent his 3 kids to Auburn. And so when we would play Florida every year back not so long ago, that was a big deal because it was a fun weekend. No matter if the teams were having a down year or an up year, we look forward to it as a family, so you have those kind of multi-generational storyline through lines, if you will, in the SEC, and they have that in the Northeast, but it's for pro sports. That's the difference.
Yeah. Maury, and Billy, growing up, we would watch ESPN, the sports reporters, and there were some great sports reporters on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Talking to us about college football. When a lot of these guys grew up in the Bronx or Brooklyn or Boston playing stickball, okay? I want somebody like Buddy Martin, on a show like that.
Yeah.
I would have wanted Clyde Bolton, Furman Bishop, Tony Barnhart, Tom Seiler, Rick Cleveland from the Jackson Clarion Ledger. I want them, to talk like we do. I don't know if I have a Southern accent or not. I don't know if Maury does. I don't know if Billy does. But we're Southern, and we're damn proud of it. The ACC, I think that's their biggest problem is they spread themselves way too far out, and people won't fight for each other. In the SEC, we can tear each other apart. Whether you want to admit it or not, we mostly pull for, on a national stage, we'll pull for those Southern teams, won't we?
Well, you heard what Butch said about being the SEC representative.
Yeah.
And how proud he is to represent this conference.
Yeah. Yeah. And Billy, I mean, like you said, I've been around your dad's awesome. And I hope he's listening today, but he's a Gator, but he goes to all the Auburn games with you, but you've been to some Gator games. And I can tell you with Ben Troop, Franz Beard, Buddy Martin, they're such good people. I said, you're going to make Gator fans out of everybody.
No doubt. Well, my dad, on the 75th anniversary of the School of Engineering at Florida, they had a alumni weekend to bring everybody back, and it happened to coincide with the final home game of Tim Tebow. And my dad and I went to the game. They played Vanderbilt, and it was unbelievable, the reverence of the Florida fan base for Tebow. Just bananas,
Yeah.
Very much probably like the Boston people revered Tom Brady. Tebow down there just was, everything. They had a statue, I think, for him before he left, the game. Where they got the bronze statues of the Heisman winners down there, similar to the way Auburn does. I think his statue was in place before he left college. So he's amazing. Tebow's a great ambassador for Florida, great guy. And but we went to that game, my dad and I, and they also recognized all of the alumni that had come back. And the thing that we were blown away by is 75th anniversary of the School of Engineering down there. And today, 1 out of every 4 students at the University of Florida is an engineering student. They have like 60 different engineering disciplines that they confer a degree in. It's phenomenal how big their School of Engineering has become down there. My dad was completely startled. He said when he was a student down there in the late 50s, early 60s, I think you could get 1 of 4 degrees in engineering, not 60. But that just shows you how the field has developed over the decades.
Yeah,
well, it's a fine program, Billy. They engineering. I'm on the council at Auburn, as Rob said, and so I know a lot about the Florida program, and they've got an excellent program, and they developed it very quickly.
Yeah,
we're celebrating our 150th year of engineering at Auburn. We're very proud of where we are and what we're doing, but Florida has done so much in a brief period of time to create a preeminent engineering program.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I've got two friends here in Atlanta who
Hold that thought, Billy. Hold that thought, because I did not know Auburn was 150 and Florida only 75.
of course, it started out that way. Look at that.
We're gonna be right back with
War
more
Eagle.
on this Saturday Sidelines. Great stuff, people.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, we are back here with this roundtable, 150th anniversary of College of Engineering at Auburn. I did not know. I think, Billy, you know, it's funny, and Maury knows this, but when you look at fundraising drives, the most profitable group in terms of giving is College of Engineering. People talk about a medical school, and Auburn doesn't have a medical school. They have a College of Osteopathic Medicine, not technically part of the university. It's in the research park, started back in 2015. The Edward Via College of Osteopathic Medicine probably now have 600 students out there. But one bit of interesting trivia that only an idiot savant like myself would know is prior to the College of Osteopathic Medicine, there were, you know, a handful of doctors that Auburn had covering all 21 sports. Now, with the College of Osteopathic Medicine there, they have enough now where they have doctors covering every sport. They have so many of these students coming there. And the reason they put that College of Osteopathic Medicine at Auburn, John Rockovich out of Roanoke, Virginia, founded it. He had has one in Blacksburg, where Virginia Tech is, one in Spartanburg, where Wofford is. There's one in Auburn. Of the 65 counties in Alabama, or 65 or 67? 67, yeah. 2/3, 65% of the doctors located in 6 counties. So this is to put doctors in rural areas. But Florida, speaking of the Gators, is one of 6 colleges in America that has a law school, a medical school, and a college of veterinary medicine. Kind of hard to do it all. And someone just referenced here, I love this one. He said, you were talking about freaks and weirdos with, you know, with bones in their noses and man buns and all. This is from one of our listeners. Wow. Jethro Tull says, don't sell Tuscaloosa short for freaks.
I love it.
Kind of like
Rob, let's get back to the comment you made a minute ago about engineering and fundraising. So,
Yeah.
you know, you and I have a great friend, Janet Bell, that we went to school with.
Yes.
Her dad, Sandy Bell, lives in Birmingham. Just probably, you know, we all know the biggest Auburn fan in the world. Rob, you might even lay claim to being the biggest Auburn fan in the world, but Sandy Bell would give you a run for your money. Maury, I don't know if you know Sandy or not. He's a wonderful guy, and he attributes every drop of his success that he's had as a businessman, and it's been considerable success, to his Auburn connections, his degree from Auburn. Not a finer guy in the world, and what an ambassador for the School of Engineering at Auburn. You know, he's incredible, and you know, goes to every game. It's harder and harder for him to do that now, so he's selective about, you know, he only does home games now. But just a great guy, and you know, tremendous ambassador for the engineering school at Auburn. But that emblem you showed, 150 years, that's fantastic. You know, I mean, that's the bedrock that Auburn was built on. the type of school that it is, and we're all so proud of that. And, it's just a wonderful thing.
Well, I want to give kudos to the College of Agriculture too. We're actually both celebrating our 150th anniversary, and this is a joint challenge coin for both agriculture and engineering. We had a joint meeting on Sanford Lawn in the fall. We had an exclusively engineering event last Saturday night, and you know what? I'm so pleased to hear Dr. Gouge and now Dr. Roberts speak about Auburn's land grant mission.
Yeah,
and that's what keeps us grounded.
Yeah,
and keeps us keeps us from becoming like so many of these other schools.
Yeah, well, you got to think about your growth of a school when and the College of Business now has now more students than the College of Engineering. They're neck and neck. That's a lot of that's Dr. Hardgrave, what he did. Dr. Hardgrave, Dr. Roberts, two of the great deans in the history of Auburn, or just anywhere, and wherever they go, success follows. But Maury,
it's interesting when economic times get tough, engineering enrollment increases.
Yeah, those are your thinkers. Yeah.
But also think about this, though. I mean, that is a completely practical approach. If you're a young student and you're maybe borrowing money to go to school, a lot of the degrees that schools might offer, you wonder how you'll ever pay back your student loans, how to make a living. But if you get an engineering degree, you're almost guaranteed that you're going to find full employment for the rest of your life. So it's a very practical choice if you think about it that way.
Yep. There's no question it is. Guys, Buddy Martin's going to be on here with us in a second, GatorBaitMedia.com and Buddy Martin show Monday through Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. Looking around, do you all let's do some quick Q&A. Do y'all think the ACC is going to even still be around? I hope it is. I want the ACC just for the basketball tradition alone. But they're pretty good in everything else too. You think they'll survive all the way to 2036, or you think that somehow the ESPN or whoever are going to come to them and say, "Okay, look, you're right. We got to renegotiate this contract." Because if you listen to Jackie Sherrill talk about, we're going to an NFL model, 4 big conferences like the AFC East and West, NFC East and West. Something's going to happen. But do you all think the ACC will survive if they don't make changes to that contract and get them more money?
It's one of these things where they had no business signing a deal that long. I mean, whoever the negotiator was should have put a 7-year tail on a contract like that, because the sports media environment changes so quickly. So what you probably ought to think about is what could they do to survive, not if they'll survive. And I think we talked about this on an earlier show, going and doing whatever they got to do to get Notre Dame to become a full-time member from a football standpoint of the ACC. They kind of play footsie with the ACC, and a lot of the other sports, they do play a full ACC schedule, but football, they've got to find a way to get Notre Dame to do that. And in the changing landscape, Notre Dame continues to hold themselves out as an independent school with their own TV deal. But somehow they got to figure that part out, and that would allow them probably to trigger a clause in their media rights deal to renegotiate the whole thing. So it'd have to be something big like that to trigger a new negotiation.
Yeah, and Maury, just real quick before we go to Buddy Martin, do you think the ACC can beat this indentured servitude contract they have through 2036?
Well, if we're going to 4 super conferences, it would seem to me the ACC might be absorbed into the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah, that's kind of go back 100 years ago. SoCon, the Super Conference, the SEC started in 1933. That took a lot from the Southern Conference, and in 1954 the ACC. And shortly after that, Buddy Martin came on the scene here, GatorBaitMedia.com, and Buddy, basically, I'm going to get on the mound. I'm going to throw you a fastball, and you're going to knock it out of the park. But we're talking about the SEC and the ACC. The SEC, everybody's pretty much shares the common core values. The ACC is spread up from Syracuse down to Miami, and there's so many different, people and just different geography. And I don't know how that conference, they're spread too far versus the SEC stayed close to their roots, and that's why it succeeds.
Well, good morning, gentlemen. I don't know if I'm qualified to join this erudite group or not, Billy and Mari, and all these engineers and lawyers. And was it your daddy, Billy, that went to Florida? And
yes. We were just talking about that before you joined.
And then he went wayward and sent his kids to Auburn. Well, that was it.
There you go.
A lot of things said so true this morning on what you're talking about. We're trying to understand. Look, we're all, most of us, at least Rob and I, probably you too, we're stuck in two worlds here, trying to figure this whole thing out. And it's hard to figure out why football wouldn't matter at Georgia Tech. Because when you're old as I am, you go back to Bobby Dodd. You remember when beating Georgia Tech was the equivalent of beating Alabama today.
Yeah.
And some of the great, teams and great games in the South revolved around that. Atlanta being, of course, the heartbeat of the SEC, and Georgia Tech was in it, as you know. But it does evolve, and it's hard to sometimes roll with the changes. Like, I don't know. Look, I'm having a hard enough time right now in my dreams every morning. This is true. I am going to a different venue almost every morning in my dreams about 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. I'll go back to sleep. And I am working at newspapers all over the country. I don't know what they are necessarily, but I'm there, and it's real. And, of course, as we know, that ship has sailed a long time ago. And it transports me back in time to, and without getting into the romantic story of newspapering and all that sort of stuff, which I know that ship has sailed, it still is sort of the same netherworld as we're talking about now, where college kids don't like to go to football games because they're African or Asian or French or whatever they are. But it's true, especially at academic, the institutes of higher learning, like Georgia Tech, like Vanderbilt, and like Florida. We have a lot of that in Florida. I have a number of friends who now are no longer, I say a number, I mean half a dozen's a lot, who are no longer Gator fans because their kids graduated with honors, high SAT scores, and they can't get in Florida.
Yeah.
And this is the third generation. Whatever, say, wait a minute, my grandfather went there. He was a whatever. And it's a different, you said culture, and that's an overused word, but it is a different culture.
Yeah.
So we're trying to balance all of this and figure it all out while, tempest is fugiting and things are changing and football is changing and football's not soccer is not football, and trying to explain to people why it's important. I mean, listen, my daughter is my granddaughter is at Rutgers. Okay. Her boyfriend is Asian. All right. Very smart young man. He didn't know much about college football. To think that my granddaughter would marry somebody who didn't know much about college football is almost heresy. It's the way life is today. It is what it is. So, gentlemen, I'll put it back to you, Rob and Billy and Mari. How do we deal with it? Meanwhile, I have all these jobs I'm doing all over the country in the morning on these newspapers trying to save them.
Well, the way we get about it is you teach history. I mean, and just follow that Marine Corps model. They teach about 100 hours of Marine Corps history in 13 weeks of basic training. The Army teaches about 10. Which group? Let's be honest. My dad was in the Army, and my brother-in-law Kurt was in the Marine Corps 26 years. Which group has more pride? I mean, the more you know about your past and the more pride you take in the people that came before you, the more you realize you weren't the first one to come along here. It was great before you got here. Make it better. So you teach that to people, the reverence. When I was at Auburn, we had to know the university. We had to know the fight song. We had to know the alma mater. And you were constantly called on the carpet in front of a big group of people to recite it word for word. On the rolling plains of Dixie, neath its sun-kissed skies, proudly stands our alma mater band. I can sing it for you, but you learned that because I had a guy named Philip A. Thompson. I talked to him yesterday, my pledge trainer. We learned it. But Maury has put together a compendium of 27 pages that he sent me called History, Traditions, and Heroes. Whether it's about Sigma Nu fraternity, but it's about Auburn. You know every building on campus named after someone in your fraternity. That's how you do it. That's just me. Maury, Billy, jump in.
Well, wait a minute now, Rob. Hold on. First of all, he got the wrong fraternity. It's not Sigma Nu. It should be Phi Delta. Okay.
Okay.
The Sigma Nu's were our rivals in Florida. Okay. Secondly, in order to teach somebody, they got to want to learn it. They got to want to learn it. I used to have my son's baseball coach, my dear friend, Walt Tomoka, used to say to his players, and he coached 2 teams in the tournament at one time in the Babe Ruth and whatever, 2 different ones. And he would say, I can only be your coach if you want me to. And if you want me to, you have to listen to what I'm saying. And if you don't, I can't coach you. So if they want to learn it, fine. Quite frankly, some of them don't want to learn about it, Rob. They just don't.
Yeah. Yeah. That's unfortunately true. Yeah.
And buddy, you're right about this. I call it legacy enrollment. It's tough. And I tell you what, I'd much rather have a 3rd generation 25 ACT than frankly, a 1st generation 28.
Well, and when we're talking about the connection to fundraising a little earlier, if you follow this to its logical extension, these folks, in Atlanta that went to Georgia Tech that, many of them are from other countries, but they like Atlanta and they stay. But they don't go to games as alumni and they don't donate money to the program. So the big challenge that Georgia Tech has is fundraising and funding the athletic department at the level that it demands to be competitive. They're the people in the state that give a lot of money are Georgia Bulldog fans, and they've got great facilities and they got a way bigger stadium. And you look at Tech and the raw material is there for greatness. They've got an incredible stadium with the siting of where that Bobby Dodd Stadium is situated in downtown Atlanta is just
unbelievable.
Jewel. And they were smart a number of years ago where they accepted the kind of the Thursday night slot many times on ESPN because, it was a night game in an urban setting with the sky rises in the background. A great setting. It makes for great television. So they've got the building blocks there to kind of revive their interest in the program. They're going to have to get an incredible coach. But beyond that, they're going to have to shake the trees of the alumni base, who all are affluent, by the way. It's not a question of can they afford to write a check to the school? They can, but they're not culturally oriented to, I live and die with what's going on every Saturday with the Yellow Jacket football team. That is the challenge. And but they can do it. They're just going to have to, it's going to take a heck of a salesperson to get that going. But I think 1 out of every 3 Georgia Tech alumni are millionaires. I mean, they got an incredible statistic that they cite. They founded companies and, done a lot of great things. So the money's there. They just need to get a way to convert that into passion for the football team that Buddy pointed out.
Yeah.
And these Rob, these excuse me for interrupting you, but the mosaic of the SEC is a bunch of small towns.
Yeah,
not Atlanta. It's Starkville and it's Auburn and it's Gainesville and it's all Baton Rouge, all these places, and not Atlanta. Yeah. So it's a different kind of thing. They're completely.
Hold those thoughts, buddy, because I want to come back and take off on that because I'm getting a lot of comments. I want to pass along comments from listeners after this quick commercial break on Sidelines. want to say something real quick before we go back to Buddy Martin. rumbleboxinggym.com/Midtown Memphis. 3 locations are going to be designed. The first one is just opened about a month ago, 1835 Union Avenue, Midtown Memphis, Union and McLean. 45-minute workout sessions, dumbbells, calisthenics, weights, up, downs, burpees, jumping jacks, star jacks. Then you hit the punching bag, man. It is brutal. Great training, great equipment, great location. And Camp Lee, again, she is going to be opening up 3 of these. The first one is open in Memphis now. rumbleboxinggym.com. It's the equivalent of land swimming, that intensive a workout. Buddy, go back to what you were talking about before the break and pick back up the small town theme. And again, I live in Memphis, 1.2 million people in the ADI, but I'm over here in parking. I'm 30 minutes. I'm in downtown Memphis on Front Street, but I'm over here in a town of 1,107 people looking at Crowley's Ridge. I can see the lights of Memphis, but I think about it. Small towns, people know each other. They're close to each other. Doesn't mean a big city's bad, but you don't want the city to be so big that you don't know people and it takes, 2 hours to get anywhere.
Well, I mean, all depends upon what your taste is and what your point of pain is in terms of attending a football game. And this is the issue we're in right now, is that people just don't like to go to the ball yard like they used to. It used to be the tailgating and going to the game. I used to have a partner who owned a radio station who was a Gator fan. He says, buddy, it's not the game. It's going to the game that matters.
That's exactly right.
All the parties that went on there. Great fan bases. They've done it well. Times change. We've talked about this a lot on this program. Who among us wouldn't rather sit in front of our 46-inch TV on Saturday and watch and crack a cold? And then if we want to go to the bathroom, we want to wait in line or pay $25 for 2 beers. Just, and that's the experience as a fan. Now, we get free seats in the press box, which is different. I enjoy going. to camaraderie at the press box, but not as much as I used to. Let's be honest. I don't know as many people as I used to in the press box. So seeing Tony Barnhart and a couple of the guys, and I'm good. I don't necessarily need to shake hands with everybody. But it's such a wonderful culture. It's been such a wonderful experience. It's been such a remarkable blessing to be a part of this game for 55 years, where I've enjoyed the fruits of all this and watched the SEC. It used to be we used to be a little brother. It looked like, every year we're fighting for somebody to say, hey, how about the SEC? Then just Ohio State and Michigan. I remember when I was a small child, you used to have these gumball machines, and you put a nickel in them, and you get, if you're lucky, one of those gold plastic footballs and some bubble gum, okay? And every damn one of the footballs had Army, Navy, Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio. They never put my Florida Gators on any of those balls at all. And it was just the way it was. We were kind of in no man's land. So it was kind of a complex for us. Like, okay, wait till the bowl season. And then, of course, the big thing got to be in the 60s. Getting the bowls, we're picking all the SEC teams. They started winning. And then suddenly we have this bull rush, thing that happened. And Gary Danielson, as much as Gator fans seem to hate him, he called the shot way back when Florida won the national championship. So you're getting ready to see an unprecedented run on national championships by SEC schools. That's why, Gary, because they got the quarterbacks and they got the coaches. And that's exactly what happened. Look what's dominated. Wow. Now, some of these conferences are pretty much train wrecked, including the ACC. I don't know what they're going to do. Go beg bars. The sea will do something. But I'm going to say this. I don't mean to make myself sound like an oracle here, but I've just been saying this a long time, 30 years. One day, it's going to be 4 conferences and one big super conference. I've been saying that since at least 1980s. Because it had to be, because in television, this is what it's all about. What's driving the market today? TV money, TV money, TV money. You've got to put your best team on the field, and you got to play in a big venue. And I could see this coming, that they don't want Maryland and and Purdue. They want to see the best. They want to see Alabama and Auburn and Florida and Georgia and maybe Notre Dame once in a while. LSU, etc. They want to see the best play the best, and we've given them that through the SEC thanks to Greg Sankey. Now they've seen what it can look like, and there's no going back. People aren't going to turn on to watch Duke, North Carolina in football. They might in basketball. So you got to compete with the entertainment dollar, and that's where the conferences are. And that's why the ACC's got a little bit of a train wreck right now because they haven't got enough marquee.
Well, and Buddy, to kind of follow on the point you made a moment ago about the, going to the experience at the stadium, and that's important, for tradition and to kind of grow the future fan base. So for many years, I've had season tickets at Auburn. Rob has come and joined me for a lot of those games. It's a lot of fun. But I got to tell you, the home package sometimes is wanting because we got 4 cupcakes and 2 or 3 pretty good teams, on the home schedule, but the price keeps going up every year. And then you've got to make a contribution on top of the ticket costs just to stay in the game to get tickets. So I think, and it's not just for the TV appeal, but for the, get people out of their couch and go to the game.
Sure.
The SEC does need to move to like 9 games, maybe 10, because those are all going to be guaranteed good games that are worthy of me driving 2 hours down to Auburn for the game. So, this 8-game schedule that they have now with 4, non-conference games, one of the 4 is a good team. The other 3 are cupcakes. That's probably can't continue.
No, there's no value to that. The value is there.
The night games are great for TV, but they're tough on the fans.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'll just say this. A lot of comments are coming in from people about, and Maury, you referenced it, the 28 or the 30 on the ACT. Buddy, you started that conversation, not taking your legacies. And I think you've got to be very careful with that. I know I got into Auburn when the people in the admissions office were at lunch and I snuck in the side door. But I remember this very well when Dr. Martin became president. Dad and him were KAs together at Auburn. And I got called into his office for a meeting, and they put a structured plan together and said, here's the deal. You're going to be accountable. And there was a woman named Emily Leeschuk, his secretary. Every 2 weeks, I'd go up there and she'd go over my grades and everything like that. They kept me on a course. And I told them as a kid, I said, I'm going to bring back everything I can. I will raise money for you. I will do anything for this school because you believed in me and you didn't give up on me. And I'm that guy that you're talking about. I'm my son Wilson to get into Auburn. He had to do some extra work, I dropped him off in the admissions office and said, see y'all later. Said, I have interviewed thousands of students, prospective students in this school in my career. I have never met anyone in my life who knew everything about every picture on the wall, the name of everybody, the date, the game, the score. She goes, this is exactly what we want here at Auburn. These that at schools around, whether it's Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida, you want those people that care and love because they're going to be the ones that go out there and when they make it big, and they will, they're going to give back. And buddy, another thing about the culture, during the pandemic, Audrey and I smashed 11 television sets Elvis style with baseball bats. Go home, stay alone, blah, blah, blah. Get out of here. We want to be around other people. And I just got a text from someone who said, Buddy speaks so well because he writes so well. Exactly, Buddy. Every time you come on here, I'm like, man, let her rip.
Well, thank you. I'm having a little hard time hearing you. Maybe it's my Wi-Fi. You're kind of
no, it's not. Rob, your connection's starting to waver a little bit. But I will say one thing, just a Rob anecdote that he won't mind. Rob and I, know David Housel. Rob, that's Rob's mentor. And a couple of years ago, they did a fundraising tour in Atlanta, and they had an alumni event at the Fox Theater. And David Housel was there, and I made a point of going up and talking to him, and I said, my roommate at school was Rob Browne, and he broke into a huge grin, and he's like, Browne. He just called him by last name, Browne. And David Housel said, there's no bigger Auburn fan in the planet than Rob. And before you came on, buddy, we were talking with Maury about, we know a lot of folks that claim to be the biggest Auburn fan of the world, but nobody comes close to Rob. He takes that ground for sure.
There's a lot, but I'll just say, can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. But you want those people in your school that would crawl on their knees to get to campus. And I can remember I was 6 years old and I remember seeing the Eagles in the K. But I've been to Florida, Athens, all these places. Everywhere you go, there's me's there for whatever that means. But there's Maury's. Maury used to hang a sign up on Highway 280 in Sylacauga when he was in high school. It said, "Honk if you love Auburn." And that was when Auburn was in the midst of a 9-game losing streak to Alabama.
Yeah.
It was, but Billy knows this, and you know this, buddy, and Maury, and everybody listening. You pick the school. My Arkansas friends, God, I've got a lot of Arkansas friends. You cross that bridge from Memphis. One state, one team. One team, one state. Even the people at the other schools in the state, they love their Hogs. They love their Razorbacks. And, buddy, you got to keep writing and doing what you're doing because it is so damn important. I mean, Socrates was so important because he challenged every Greek philosopher who had been there since 647 BC when Thales came along.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't read his stuff. I didn't see what team did he cover. But anyway,
API.
I want to say a word about Auburn, and Maury, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you, but here's my Auburn connection. The first game I ever went to in Gainesville, I was like, I think 8th grade, 7th grade, and my rich friends' family took me to the game. I couldn't afford to buy a ticket. The Collins family, Zandy Collins, and they took us up to Gainesville, and I saw my first Gator game. I must have been about maybe 13, 12, whatever it was. I was amazed by it. And Mr. and Ms. Collins were such great people. They always looked after Zandy's friends and took us to ball games, whatever. And Zandy wound up going to school where? At Auburn.
Oh, wow.
Of all things. Yeah, he went, and he was the wealthiest guy in Ocala. Good friend of mine, came home here, ran for city council when he was 22 years old, made it, inherited his dad's anyway. But a tragic fate ultimately and was killed. But I always had an affection for Auburn. The Auburn-Florida the rivalry was one of the great rivalries because I felt like, number one, they were competitive. We can never beat you guys up there at Auburn, it seems like. But the people and the fans were such kind people and good people. Two of my best friends today, Frank and Mary Watson, Auburn graduates. They live now in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And so I've known Auburn fans a long time. But what you said earlier, I want to get back to. Tradition. It's being lost. What I love about Auburn is its rich tradition. And I'll say one thing they do is just by itself. Their press box up there, okay? Ain't the greatest press box in the world, but they have on their walls, they have pictures of the great writers who covered their teams. Benny Marshall, go on and on, all those guys. I knew them all. Al Van Hoos, whatever. And David Housel was responsible for that. And I thought, what a great thing to do to honor these people who really made Auburn football. What they did. How many does Florida have? 0, not one. I don't know who all goes on the wall, but I know damn well there's a few that deserve to be up there. And I think this is the kind of thing that Scott Strickland, he's not from here. I mean, I've said this to 2 or 3 people and whatever. Falls on deaf ears. I mean, it's not just that, but Florida football was helped. The tradition was built by guys like Joe Halberstein, the Gainesville Sun, Jack Harrison, Tom McEwen. I can go on and on and on. They're not even remembered. They're not even a footnote in history anywhere. And that to me is heresy that they would not do something like that. And you know what? We're not going to have that because this ship has sailed. Nobody cares about those guys anymore. Remember the storytellers. They made it what it is.
Well, who was the great Herodotus? 486 BC. Herodotus recorded what happened at the Battle of Thermopylae. Okay? That's where history came from. Herodotus, the great That's where history started. But if you don't tell the stories and you don't honor the storytellers, you won't remember anything.
Yeah.
And
like
I think that's important.
Like Mr. Louder said at his Lifetime Achievement Award presentation, when you drink the water, don't forget who dug the well.
There you go.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I bought a paper copy of the Atlanta paper the other day, and it was
What? Where'd you find that?
Yeah, just
Where'd you get that, Billy?
And
Time capsule?
I was shocked at how thin the sports section was. It was like 2 pages, and a quarter of that was ads, and there was very little editorial in it. And I remember as a kid, buying the Atlanta paper, not just the weekend papers, but even during the week. And the sports page was huge with great writers, Furman Bisher. Heck, Louis Grizzard got his start as a sports writer in Atlanta. He wasn't the columnist that he ended up being. And Furman Bisher, I think, hired him, so I mean, and
Jim Mentor actually hired him.
Yeah.
And I knew Louis a little bit. And Louis went to the Chicago Sun-Times the same time I went to the New York Daily News.
Yeah.
And we talked a couple of times. He hated Chicago.
He did.
He wanted the hell out of there. As fast as he could get. And the story goes that Jim Mentor, who was a great editor there,
Yes.
And my friend John Clendenin worked there. And Louis just wanted to get back. And he called Jim Mentor and said, I got to get back to Atlanta. And Louis and Jim said, I don't have a job here, Louis. He said, all I got is a local columnist. You got to go out and cover city council meetings, all that kind of stuff. And so I don't care. I want to come back.
Yeah.
So they hired you back as a local columnist covering city council and county commission meetings, right? Well, that didn't last long. Next thing you know, and Dave Kimden tells us a story. The first time that Louis Grizzard wrote a column about his truck and his dog and the Georgia Bulldogs, that was it.
That's exactly right.
Well, guys, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back for one more segment. But, these young people we talk about, and I've got 4 kids, and Billy, we've all got them. I will say this. They do more than we realize value history, because when their parents and their grandparents are gone, they're going to remember them and tell stories about them every day. I'd give anything to have my grandmother back and my grandfather and my grandmother and my so you value it. And I think that what we've got to do is just remind people of how important it is. Again, this place was great long before you got here, long before iPhones and smartphones, okay? Make it better, but don't ever miss an opportunity to honor those who came before you. We'll be right back. Great roundtable. Right, we are back here, man. I tell you what, that music, that bump music when we come back in reminds me of something from an old spaghetti western, man.
Feels like Bonanza.
Yeah, it's like Bonanza, like, ho, hey, but guys, I just think it's so critical. And again, I get feedback from people of all ages that hear the show, and they're going, wow, I didn't know that. But I remember when I was a kid, you were kind of like, well, what does all that matter, boy? And as you get older, you realize it's everything. It's just like I say it all the time. Your best guests on the show are typically your writers. Maury talked about it, Billy do, because you think about what you're saying, buddy. The first time you went to a game. So I'll tell you one thing about this show. Each one tell one, a dollar goes a long way. Tell your friends about the show. Tell them what we're doing on here. And also, if you get an opportunity, and most of our listeners can do this, take some young person or two to a game at your school that may have never been to a game before. man, you're going to change their lives. How many times did we read stories about, like Bobby Humphrey, for example, played at Alabama, sold Cokes at Legion Field, and that's how he got into the games. And look what that turned into. You know,
Rob, I gave a pair of Auburn LSU tickets to a friend of mine at church and his son, who was probably a ninth grader at the time. That son wound up not only enrolling at Auburn, but being a walk-on for the football team. He got Scout Player of the Year. Wow. And now he's a very successful Auburn alumnus in North Carolina, and he'll be a giver back to Auburn.
His name was Pat Sullivan, right?
Well, not that far back. Pat wasn't a walk-on, nor was he on the scout team. Buddy, my first Auburn road trip was to Gainesville in 1966.
Oh, wow. You got to pick the good one there.
Yeah, sure did. Yeah.
Well, and I remember my first trip to Gainesville, I was dismayed and surprised that there was a J&M bookstore in Gainesville because I thought that was strictly an Auburn thing, but they have a J&M in Gainesville. I'm like, why? What's going on?
We had lights and running water, too. You never know. But it's, and again, I think Auburn's the closest school geographically to us here in Gainesville. And I don't know, don't get me started on that because like you said earlier, I believe it was Maury that said it. I don't know, maybe it was Billy talking about how the schedules changes, watered down, get to play one of your rivals, and you got to play. I mean, look, I don't want to get on this bandwagon again, but we've seen the best. And it was the time when they played all SEC schools.
Yeah.
And we're not going to go back. That was the best. I mean, that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for the directional schools and all that stuff. And maybe you get one rival a year or whatever, and play somebody from the ACC, whatever. But fans are just not going to do that anymore. And I think what they're saying is they can shrivel up the stadiums. Florida's going to reduce the swamp down to whatever number it's going to be. They're going to redo the stadium here in 3 or 4 years. And they're going to take the TV package and get fat. And get NIL money, and they're going to operate like that. And so who do you think has the word and the final say about what happens? Not going to be the fans who buy the tickets. No, it's the people who are putting in the money. And that's the way it is, the golden rules. People who got the goal are the ones who rule. That's what we're coming to. I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. I know money is a guiding force, but I still believe in the theory. And the biblical scripture, money, the desire for money is the root of all evil, not money itself. You've got to back it off at some point and say, what is important here? And draw the line in the sand and say, sorry, Mr. AD, we know you want $50 gazillion to do this, but that's not what this is about.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a quick story about why for young fans to have the football schedule has got to be compelling. So my daughter grew up in Atlanta, but of course she'd been going to Auburn games with me since she was 3 years old. So she had done a lot of Auburn games as a little kid, but when she went down there as a college student for the first time, the first 3 games of her freshman season were directional schools. Mm-hmm. I think we played Mercer thrown in there, nothing great. Yeah. And she was like, Dad, I think I made a mistake. Auburn is really a small town,
oh, really?
And I'm, I don't know if I can stay. I think I might've made a bad choice. And I said, wait till the LSU game, because that year the LSU game was about the 5th game on the schedule, but it was still a September game or maybe the first game in October. And I never heard another word from her in 4 years about, her choice of school and whether she made a mistake or not. But she had a date for the LSU game, and she ended up dating the guy for 4.5 years and never heard another word about it. But those first couple of weeks, I was genuinely worried. Like, if we don't play a good home game, I'm going to lose my kid here. She's going to waver and want to transfer.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
So it does matter, and you got to have compelling matchups every week. And during the COVID year where we had 10 games, I thought that was some of the best scheduling that we had, because every game was a great game.
The best. Yeah. Well, she went rolling on Toomer's Corner at one time, and that was it for her.
There you go.
Well, the bottom line is, we may go to a 12-game, who knows? We may go to a 12-game SEC schedule, but if we go to these 14 pods, guys, that means you'll play every school at least twice in a 4-year period. That'll keep a conference strong.
Critical.
keep in mind, Georgia still has yet to play in College Station since 2012 when A&M joined the league.
Didn't realize that.
It's criminal.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, we're going to see about what's going to happen to Georgia here in the next couple of years, because we know nobody holds serve forever, although it feels like Georgia has. Sooner or later, there will be somebody's going to do a breakthrough. It'll be interesting to see what polls would show that, or which teams would do that. This year, they're having a difficult time finding somebody outside of Georgia. I'm not willing to lay it down for LSU just yet, but there's that Texas A&M team. They still got talent, and they got Petrino. There's a lot of people going to be nibbling at the edges, and Kirby can't get every 5-star, although it feels like he's getting them. Another one the other day. So ultimately, if all that was to it was just recruiting the best players, Bear Bryant would never have lost a game.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing too is that with the portal, John Hartwell, the athletic director at ULM, was on with us yesterday from the Sun Belt meetings down in Destin. And he talked about what encouraging news they're hearing about NIL and the portal and all. And there's some things that are being done. I think more than we want to admit, the free market will fix it. I think NIL already, you're seeing kids getting paid up front, taking the money and leaving and going to another school. That is a real problem.
It's not going to last.
Yeah, it ain't going to last. It's unsustainable. You go back when you broke the story, you and Franz Beard at GatorBaitMedia.com. Subscribe, people, whether you're a Gator or not. It's like reading the Wall Street Journal. You need to read it. They know what's going on. Talk about the quarterback out of Pittsburgh, California, Jaden. Rashada, we heard of a $13 million deal. It didn't happen, obviously, and he went to where, Arizona State or something like that?
I don't know. He's had to bounce around since then. I'm not sure where he wound up. I can't keep up with him. Bro.
There you go. There you go. See, I mean, that's the point. Frank Duffy, who's out on his West Coast tour right now, unable to join us this morning, said it best when he said, 3 of my LSU friends that live in Louisiana who own businesses did NIL deals with 3 different LSU players. And by the time the season ended in the bowl game, all 3 of those guys had quit. Don't use the word opt out. Okay. You can't opt out as a parent. You either are a parent or you're a quitter. You're a quitter if you're not there at the bowl game. Don't tell me it's not important, because it is. You're representing that school. That's where we've had the breakdown of allowing people to say, well, this bowl game doesn't matter. The hell they don't. They do. Until the tickets are free and they're paying for your air travel and your hotel rooms, the games should matter.
Yeah, it's some kind of contractual thing that's got to be worked out. But look, they got to figure out who they're playing first. That's the next thing in the schedule. Got to get it straight. There's so much that has to be fixed, and so many changes that, look, we're in the business and we can't keep up with what coaches are going where, let alone the players. I mean, when I was a kid and I had baseball cards, I remember when the Red Sheen-Dinks got traded for the Cardinals. And I was ready to go to war about it. They changed something. My Cardinal second baseman was gone. And today, I mean, they changed like changing underwear. How are we going to know who's playing quarterback for Arizona State? I can't look up every second, look up a roster and find out. I have to wait, turn the games on, and find out like everybody else does. So it's going to be tumultuous change. Are the fans going to get fatigued by it? That's what they got to worry about. If I'm not going to say, oh, the hell with it, I'll wait till playoffs like the NBA, they better be careful with that. Protect their tradition, protect their rivalries, and remember, not everybody's got a roster out to say, oh, wait, he moved there. Oh, wait, he's gone there. We can't keep up. Help us out.
Exactly. That's the point. You got to look at the crawl at the bottom of the TV screen now to know who's there, because these kids, I will say this, 45% of them are not getting picked up when they go into the portal. And of those 55%, I did some math, about 70% of the top 100 players now are signing with 8 schools. So you have a few Power 5 to Power 5 success stories like Joe Burrow or Jameson Williams, who played at Alabama. But it's mainly Power 5 down to Group of 5 or Group of 5 up to Power of 5. But we got to be careful that we don't turn everything else into a farm system. And we brought this up on the show yesterday. Why not have a national championship for the other schools if you're going to go to this big super conference? Because it will matter to them. It'll matter, won't it?
Of course, right, exactly. And Billy and Maury and Rob help me out here. I know this recruiting is everything, and everybody, all they want to do is talk about recruiting. It's never about what's going on now with the team. It's who we're going to get next,
Yeah.
And it's a bright, shiny thing. And I get all that, but there's a phrase called "I'll play these" in poker, where you finally reach the point where you say, "I'll play these," or the old coach saying, "Dance with the one that brung you."
Yeah.
At some point, you got to play your team that you got there, and we don't have the advantage of look. They're now to a point where not just recording on recruiting, they're now reporting on the visits. Okay, all right. Here are the 14 guys making a visit. I don't care about the visits.
Yeah.
Please. I mean, I know it's gotten macro now. So to a point where just put them on the field. Let me take a look at them. I'll let you know what I think.
Yep.
Yeah. The visit part of it is incredible. They all have it was great. It was awesome. I loved it. What do you think they're going to say?
Exactly. I got a free meal.
I mean, everybody used to take the trip to Hawaii. I remember Bobby Lee Hurt when he was in Huntsville being recruited to Alabama, the basketball player. He took the trip to Hawaii. Everybody did. Now they limited it. Supposedly they've limited it, but, I don't know if we really have any rules anymore. I think that it's, as Coach Sherrill said yesterday, it's all about eyeballs, buddy. You're right.
Yeah.
The fans are the ones with the eyeballs. If they ain't watching it, if they boycott and they go into the portal, then we're going to have a real problem. Billy, Maury, buddy, I think we ought to start thinking, why don't we organize a fan boycott if it gets too ridiculous? Because
we can't do that because we all love the game.
I know that. I'm being serious about the fans. Just say to the TV people, okay, we want more games at 1:30 or 2:30.
Yeah.
An 8:00 game. If you live in Mobile or Pensacola or Nashville, or like Mobile, you can go up to a game in Tuscaloosa for the day. If it's an 8:00 kickoff, you're getting home at 6:00 Sunday morning.
Yeah.
That's a rough Sunday, I'll tell you that. Especially if your wife didn't go and she got a full night's rest, she's going to come in there and expect you to go out and cut the grass or do whatever, and you're going to be like, what day is it?
Rob,
went to that game.
Back in the early 70s, everybody was putting in AstroTurf and all that sort of stuff, and Auburn never did it.
Yeah,
and a lot of folks were putting in lights and having night games, and we didn't have lights until the opening game of the 81 season against Wake Forest.
When they built that upper deck.
Yeah. And Coach Jordan was famous for having said college football should be played at 1:30 on Saturday afternoon on natural grass.
That's a great quote.
And I said that once to Dave Tompkins, and as you have learned, Dave never forgets anything.
Yes.
And he's repeated that back to me hundreds of times. But, buddy, you're familiar with what Coach Jordan said?
Yeah, I mean, I'd heard that vaguely somewhere, and I love that. But, the problem is we're in the minority.
Well, I always have been.
Yeah, exactly.
I've always been outspoken.
Name me the last time a TV boycott worked. I mean, the networks are too powerful.
Yeah.
You can just complain all you want.
Well, Auburn's tested the patience of our fan base with the coach that we had for the last 2 years. And I thought about not buying season tickets in some kind of protest with it. I'm like, better days are coming and I don't want to lose my seats.
No, of course you don't.
Yeah.
So protests don't work. They
don't seem to work. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of at the point of this right now, gentlemen. This is where I've come to. I've worried and wrung my hands enough about this whole thing. And I've decided, and I wrote this last week, how many ever seasons the good Lord gives me now to write about, talk about, watch Gator sports, Gator football. I'm going to do it without false expectations. And I'm going to do it with the realization there are some things you have to accept. Sometimes if you like good pig, you got to let it slow roast. You have to understand that it's going to take a little longer. You must identify the person and what they're up against. And you say, is this the person I want to lead my team? How's his character? What kind of what acumen does he have? Is he smart? Is he giving full effort? And then you say, okay, it's kind of like when you get your daughter married off. You don't ever get to say exactly everything that the guy ought to do that she's marrying. You have to accept some things maybe you wouldn't like to. And maybe, not terrible, but some things maybe he likes the wrong football team, whatever. Fact is, you have to accept certain things. I'm in a mode now where I'm going to accept at least for 5 years whatever the team is at Florida, write about them, talk about them, and say and criticize them when they're not good. But I'm not going to sit there and wring my hands and worry, oh, nice, is Billy not? Is he going to make it win 6? Yeah. Never mind. Whatever they win, they'll win.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to enjoying college football and watching my team play and write about it and talk about it, being a critic about everything that goes on.
I could not agree more. We've run out of time, folks. We most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. We have the greatest show in the world because we have the best guests like this group right here, Coach Thompson earlier. Have a great weekend, everybody. Go out and help people every chance you get. We'll see you Monday morning. Dave Tompkins will be on with us talking about the Preakness and the PGA. We are out of here. Thank you.